What are we discussing on today's Locked On Diamondbacks podcast? It's Mailbag Friday, answering all your guys' questions like, did the D-backs make the right choice with Gallen over Corbin Burnes for opening day? Did Jordan Montgomery raise his trade value with his most recent start? And so much more on today's Locked On Diamondbacks podcast.
You are Locked On Diamondbacks, your daily Arizona Diamondbacks podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome into the Locked On Diamondbacks podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. You're listening to who? Always charismatic host of this podcast, Millard Thomas, multimedia journalist, and a graphic designer. So please go check out my website, millardthomas24.myportfolio.com. On there you can see all my latest work, from my packages to my articles to my photos and my graphic design. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers can get $200 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. On today's Locked On Diamondbacks podcast, we are answering all your guys' questions that you submitted via YouTube, via Twitter. Thank you to everyone who submitted a question today. You are leading today's podcast, and this is something I want to do every Friday in the regular season. So send in your questions all week long at CareerThomas24 on Twitter, Locked On Diamondbacks, both Twitter and Instagram for the podcast handle. Drop in the YouTube comment section. We're doing this every Friday, so please drop your questions in the chat. But before we get into your guys' questions, I first want to say thank you for making Locked On Diamondbacks your first listen every day. I would not be able to do this podcast without you, my loyal listeners, sharing, subscribing, reviewing, doing all that so I could do this podcast for you. Thank you. It's free. It's available on all platforms, so please continue to tell your friends. And one of those platforms is YouTube. Please hit subscribe to Locked On Diamondbacks on YouTube. But now let's get into those listener submitted questions. Thank you guys to everyone again who shouted out the D-backs on Twitter, on Instagram, in the YouTube comment section, and dropped a question. This one is coming from Wayne Kest, 1547. And he said, with the question mark at first base after this season, with Gallen, Kelly, Monty off the books, do we think next year the D-backs go after Vladdy? This is a fantastic question, one that we've discussed a little bit on the podcast already, because when you've looked at the rumors in teams linked to Vladdy, the D-backs have already been in the conversation. When you go look up odds for where Vladdy could land next season, it's not like the D-backs are one of the 5 worst teams on that list. 10 years ago, the D-backs would be nowhere near a list of top superstar hits the free agent market. Will the D-backs get them? The D-backs were never in that conversation before. But when it was starting to get reported, the conversations between Vladdy and the Blue Jays and the fact that they came to this impasse, he's going to hit free agency, we've seen a whole bunch of different websites and articles drop with them doing like their power ranking or their tier list of the teams most likely to get Vladdy. And the D-backs are always in that like top 5 to 8 range. And I think that's respectable. You have to put the biggest of the big market teams ahead of the D-backs probably. A team like the New York Mets probably has $1 billion ready for Vladdy. A team like even the San Francisco Giants, who have been waiting for that superstar player, they'll probably be ready to pony up more money than the D-backs as well. But if you are Arizona and you do have Gallen, Kelly, you got potentially Eugenio, right? You have so much money coming off the books. Monty, would the D-backs get crazy and say, Vladdy, why don't you come down here? Here's $35-40 million a year to come play for Arizona. I think the D-backs are going to be interested. I think they're going to be in the market, but ultimately, I don't think Arizona will do it because I don't believe in the D-backs giving out those long-term deals to these position players. And I think the D-backs should be on the side of not giving out long-term deals to position players because I think for the most part, it does not work out. The D-backs were in on Xander Bogaerts, but they were not going to go to that 9th, 10th year, the 11th year that the Padres were willing to do. And thankfully, they passed on Bogaerts, right? For Vladdy, he is what? 26. He'll be like 27 as a free agent. Like, if you gave Vladdy like a 6-year deal, 7-year deal that paid him till he's like, 33, 34, 35, I would be okay. The D-backs said, here's 7 years, $220 million or whatever, 35 to 40 annually is over 7 years, I would be fine if the D-backs gave him that contract. When it comes to these Juan Soto deals where guys are signing 14, 15-year deals, paying a guy $40 million until he's 40 years of age, that's when I'm out. And so when we're talking about Vladdy's chances to go to the D-backs, yes, I believe the D-backs are going to be in on Vladdy. They're going to be in on that market. They're going to be calling his agent, having conversations. They're going to see how long he wants, how much money he wants, and they're going to try to figure out a number. But ultimately, I think the years is going to be too much for Vladdy. I just think there are other teams, more specifically a big market team that is more willing to give out an insane deal like that. For the D-backs, because you're a mid-market team, you have to be a little bit more conservative, a little bit smarter. I'm actually happy. This is actually one of those instances where being the biggest market doesn't help you, because if you're the big market, Mets or, whoever else, you have to pay Vladdy what he's worth. If you're the D-backs, you're like, yeah, we want Vladdy, but we actually can't afford you. Let's go get the next tier of free agent who's probably just as productive, just as good, and a lot cheaper. So yes, the D-backs will be in on Vladdy, but the odds of getting him, they're probably between 5th and 8th in Major League Baseball next offseason. Next question. This is from Johnny353. He said, was it the right call for the D-backs to start Zach Gallen over Corbin Burnes on opening day? And again, this is something I have discussed on the podcast before. I was happy. I was okay with whoever started opening day, as long as it was between Burnes or Gallen. I mean, even if you told me Merrill Kelly, I probably would have been fine as well. But it's like, Gallen's a stud. He's been the D-backs ace, and I believe that's why he's starting opening day. It's a respect thing. When you've been here for that 2021 season where you had over 100 losses, you were here the very next season where you missed the playoffs again. You had the 2023, you were the ace of the staff that got to the World Series. You're the ace of the staff last year on an 89-win team that just missed the postseason. Like, you think about the ups and downs of the D-backs franchise the last few years, and Zach Gallen has been the one to put on the tank commander hat and lead this rotation through some of the rubbish we've seen over the last few years. And now we're coming out on the other side. And so it's like, let's reward the guy who's been here through the tough times, who is legitimately a stud pitcher. It's not like Zach Gallen is like Rick Porcello or something and we're making him start opening day. Like, Zach Gallen, every time we do a prediction podcast before the season starts, I'm like, Zach Gallen's going to win the Cy Young this year, or at least finish top 3 as a finalist, right? And it's like, that's not a crazy take to have. Yes, I'm probably being a homer and biased saying Zach Gallen's going to win the Cy Young, but we've seen him in 2022 finish as a Cy Young finalist, right? We've seen this guy have the numbers of a guy that can win the Cy Young. He just has to put it all together for a singular season. And so it's like, if the conversation is between Gallen or Corbin Burnes, yes, in a vacuum, Burnes is better. He's got the higher contract. But you can't deny the fact that Gallen's been the ace of this D-back staff the last few years through some hard times. I'm okay with Torey Lovullo giving the respect factor to a guy who is super talented and still an ace in baseball. So I don't think it's going to hurt the D-backs' chances at all starting Gallen over Corbin Burnes opening day. Now we'll get into the rest of your guys' questions in segment number 2. And if you're looking to buy tickets to an upcoming sport or an event, then the best place to do that, of course, is going to be Game Times, because Game Time is the best place for last-minute deals on sports, concerts, comedy, theater, and more. They have this feature called All-In Pricing. When you toggle this feature on, it shows you your total cost up front with no surprise fees at checkout. You could get a panoramic view from your seat before you buy. They also have the lowest price guarantee, or Game Time will credit you 110% of the difference. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off. Download Game Time today. What time is it? Game Time. But hey, if you're looking to place a little wagers down on a March Madness game, then the best place to do that is going to be FanDuel, because March Madness is here and FanDuel is giving you the chance to get in on the action like never before. Right now, new customers can get $200 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. That's $200 to use on everything from buzzer beaters to Cinderella stories and even who's cutting down the nets. My favorite thing to do on FanDuel is the same game parlay. When I see the Phoenix Suns are playing, I'll take KD over on points. I'll take Booker over on points, and then give me the opponent's money line. I'm sorry, Suns fans, but that's what you got to do if you want to win some money. If you want to win some money, up to $200 of bonus bets, just put down $5. And if your bet wins, you get all that money in your pocket. So visit fanduel.com and get in on the college hoops action all tournament long. Back here on the Locked On Diamondbacks podcast to answer more of your guys' user-submitted questions, or listener-submitted questions, I should say. Next one is by Dojohn22, and he said, did Jordan Montgomery raise his trade value? Jordan Montgomery actually had a decent outing. I believe it was yesterday. He looked good. He went a couple innings, didn't give up any earned runs, actually lowered his ERA from 135 to 15. And we're living in a world where 15 sounds low. It's insane to think about, but that's where we are. But Jordan Montgomery did have a good outing. Seemed like he was top now in the low 90s, and he just looked a lot better than what we've seen, right? And for Monty, he's been a big point of discussion all offseason. I've done a lot of crossovers with Javier Reyes, Locked On Padres, talking about Monty. Like, can he really be this bad? Is what we saw from 2024 going to continue? Because prior to last season, this was one of the most consistent, reliable starters in Major League Baseball. Was he like a number one ace? No, but he was like, if you need a guy to give you 190 innings pitch, a 3.3 ERA, and like 180 strikeouts, like Monty was like a top 5 guy in baseball to name prior to last season, because that's all he did year after year. Now it's like, is this guy just Madison Bumgarner? It's crazy, the fall of grace and how quickly narratives can change, our perceptions of players, how quickly it can change. Because how excited were you when the D-backs signed Monty last year, right? The 11th hour, right before opening day. We already had our 5-man rotation with Gallen, Kelly, Fott, Erod, and we're like, man, this is one of the best 1 through 4s in D-backs franchise history. Now it's like, whoa, we just added Monty. Like, either Fott, Erod, or Monty might not be in the playoff rotation. And considering Monty was coming off the World Series where he beat us, he was definitely going to be in the playoff rotation. So it's like either Erod, who's getting $20 million a year, or Fott, who's our number 3 starter, isn't going to be in a playoff rotation. It was crazy to think about the joy we were having when Monty was signed just around this time last year. And now, instead of trying to sign him or re-sign him, we're trying to unload him, get rid of him. And I think after yesterday's outing, he did raise his trade value, because John Gambadora of Arizona Sports has been tweeting saying after his outing, there's been a couple more teams sniffing, making the calls to the D-backs. Now, if you're expecting to get any value back for Monty after his outing yesterday, that's where I would push back. I think we're now just in the conversation for someone to pick up the phone and ask about Jordan Montgomery. Like, that's where we are now. Are they going to trade for Monty and give us a top 10 prospect back? No. If anything, this will probably be a salary dump. We might not even get anything back. And if anything, we might be sending money to the team that picks up Monty, because we just need to get him off the roster, out the rotation. Like, imagine if we had like Ryan Nelson, Bryce Jarvis, Dre Jameson, like one of those guys won't be in the bullpen because Monty is going to take a bullpen spot. That's why we have to get him off this roster. So yesterday's outing at least raises trade value, but I don't know if it raises to the point where the D-backs are going to get something significant back in return. Next up, this is by JT Shorter. Where will the D-backs rank in runs in the MLB this season? I will change his question a little bit, and I'll just make it the National League, not Major League Baseball, because baseball still feels so segregated between the two leagues, despite us now playing every team at least once, which is like finally, right? I still don't know how we're not at a point where I can go to, New York Yankees Stadium, watch the D-backs, and the Yankees can also come to Chase Field in the same season. That's where we need to get baseball, but eventually we'll get there. Baby steps. But for the D-backs, where will they rank in runs in the National League? Well, this team last year, right? Where did they rank? Number one, this was the best offense in baseball last year. And you can even say Major League Baseball because they were. Runs scored. I think they might even let in home runs, runners in scoring position, like first inning runs, late game runs. Like this was the best team offensively last year. And do we think they can replicate that? I do think they can replicate that. Will I predict them to be the number one offense in the sport? No, because when you still have the Braves with a loaded lineup, the Phillies, the Dodgers, like any one of those teams could be better than the D-backs in runs scored in the National League. So I will say at the very least, D-backs will be top 4. And if I had to go on record, I will say the D-backs will be top 3 in the NL because I don't think you go from number 1 to number 4 in runs scored. A lot of the same pieces are going to be back. I don't expect, like Marte will probably have some regression to the mean, but I also think Corbin Carroll will be better. I think a guy like Geraldo Perdomo can be even better. I think we might see pre-pandemic Eugenio Suarez, maybe Gurriel's a little bit better. I've made the argument. You look at WRC plus, the last 3 seasons. Collectively, Josh Naylor has been better than Christian Walker. So there's a real argument you can make that the D-backs offense can be better than what it was last year. You can make the argument that we actually upgraded at first base offensively. I don't know if I would make that argument, but some numbers would tell you that. Now, missing Jock Peterson is going to hurt for sure, but maybe a guy like Adrian Del Castillo, more playing time leads to more production. Maybe a guy like Jordan Lawler produces for the D-backs and leads to some really good offensive production as well. So this D-backs lineup, I still think it's as good as it was last year, and I don't see any reason why it won't be a top 3 offense in the National League once again. I think Carroll's going to be better. Marte's still going to be there. Like, I still love this team, and I think most importantly, they have depth at every position. There's not really a weak spot on this roster, not really a hole. You used to have guys like Nick Ahmed who are like, we love him defensively, but we know offensively he really provides nothing for the D-backs at the plate. There's really not a guy like that. Unless Alek Thomas is playing for the D-backs where he's kind of the new Nick Ahmed, all defense, no offense. The difference is Alek Thomas is not going to be an everyday player. Nick Ahmed had to play 150 games for the D-backs. Alek Thomas, like if we wanted to, he could be the D-backs 5th outfielder behind Carroll, Gurriel, McCarthy, and even a Randall Grichuk. And so there's not a lot of non-offensive players on this D-backs team. Everyone at least has a skill set that they're bringing to the lineup. And because of that, I believe the D-backs are going to finish at least top 3 in the National League and runs scored in 2025. And now we'll get into the rest of your guys' submitted questions in segment number 3.
The NCAA tournament is here, and so is the Bracket Breakdown.
Locked On Podcast Network and Amazon Fire TV channels are teaming up to deliver NCAA tournament coverage like never before. Watch studio shows featuring former players and Locked On's local experts as they guide you through every upset, buzzer beater, and bracket matchup.
Stream it all for free on Amazon Fire TV channel. Search Bracket Breakdown to see it all for free.
It's your team every day.
Back here on the Locked On Diamondbacks podcast. And now let's wrap up the pod with a few more questions from you guys. This next one is by Goldie. Fitting because his question is, do you think Goldie ever comes back to Arizona? And I thought there was a real possibility Goldschmidt was going to return to Arizona this free agency because, of course, D-backs or Christian Walker leaving, had a hole at first base. Goldie coming off a down season, I was like, maybe a change of scenery back to a place where he's already familiar with could bring some at least 2023 levels back for Goldie. Maybe not 2022 when he was the MVP of Major League Baseball, but I still think there was enough left in the tank where he could be a very good first baseman for the D-backs this past year. Defensively, he's still solid, still got some pop in the bat. I definitely would have been pro Paul Goldschmidt this past offseason, but I would much rather have the younger Josh Naylor. Goldie is 37. He is going to be, by the time the postseason rolls around, if the D-backs make it far, he's going to be 38 years of age. And so it's like, that's a cool guy if he's the D-backs DH, right? If it's Josh Naylor at first, or maybe it's even Goldie at first, but he's kind of like a platoon defensive first baseman that's also DHing at the same time. Like in that situation, if he's playing half and half and he doesn't have to be the everyday player for the D-backs, if he's more in that Jock Peterson, Randall Grichuk mode, yeah, I would love Goldie and I would love him on this team this upcoming season, but he's only getting older. If he ever returns to Arizona, it will probably be in only a DH capacity in like the Randall Grichuk mode where it's like you're only coming in to hit left-handed pitching. I still like Goldie for at least this season, but by the time he comes to Arizona, he will probably be cooked. But if you want like an underrated player to keep an eye on in fantasy, I would say Paul Goldschmidt. Going to Yankee Stadium, yes, he's a righty, but still a super small ballpark. I could see Goldie having a nice little bit of a resurgent season out there in New York. So I would keep an eye on Goldie if you have a fantasy draft coming up soon. Next up, why hasn't Torey Lovullo named a closer yet? This is from Zach Gallen 4. I don't know Zach Gallen 4. I don't know why Torey Lovullo hasn't named a closer yet. It's mostly because we are committed to competition, right? We keep saying winning over development. We're making sure we're crossing our T's, we're dotting our I's. We want to make sure the D-backs are picking the absolute best choice to be the closer. Like from that standpoint, I have to respect the due diligence of the D-backs, leaving no stone unturned, making sure the guy that they choose is the guy that they want for the whole season, that they're making sure the guy can actually do the job competently on a high level, because this is a great D-back squad with an elite lineup, an elite rotation, and the last thing you want is a closer going out there and screwing up games and not being able to get wins for the D-backs, because we've seen that be such a problem for Arizona during the Torey Lovullo era. So maybe it's really just because he has PTSD from all these closers over the last few years. He's like, I have to get this right. But also if you're Torey, it's like, you really can't get this wrong. All you have to do is say Justin Martinez is going to be the closer, and like that's all we need you to do, Torey. We all know J Mart's going to be the closer, and if he's not the closer, D-backs fans might riot. If you name AJ Puck, all right, we'll be fine. But still, J Mart should be the closer. There's no reason after the season he had with the pitching arsenal he has. He needs to be Arizona's closer going to this season. Make Puck the 8th inning guy, Ginkel the 7th guy, and then figure out the rest from there. And it's something that even the relievers want. Ryan Thompson has talked about having defined roles in the bullpen helps everyone out with their mentality, their focus, showing up to the ballpark every day and knowing what your job is helps out these relievers so much. And Ryan Thompson really talked about how when he was with the D-backs during that World Series run, knowing he had the 7th inning, it made the 7th feel like the 9th. He knew if he went out there, closed the 7th, put zeros on the board, the game was going to be over once it got to Ginkel and Sewald. And now if you're Ryan Thompson, you could be the 6th inning guy. Maybe you're the closer. We don't know, because Torey Lovullo still hasn't named a closer, because once he does that, we know J-Mart will be the 9th inning guy, Puck 8th, Ginkel 7th, Ryan Thompson 6th inning, go-to ground ball specialist, Mantiply go-to lefty specialist, Kendall Graveman, middle to high leverage reliever, and then you throw in your long reliever and probably a Monty and then one other guy. Like, we know how the bullpen is supposed to go, how it's supposed to be. We are just taking our sweet old time naming that closer, just like we took our time naming the D-backs opening day starter. So it should be Justin Martinez's name being called pretty soon to that spot. But if it's not, we're going to have a real conversation with Torey Lovullo about what are you doing with the closer position, sir? We're going to have to discuss. And then one final question. This is by Yes973. Should I bet the over on the D-backs on FanDuel? Yes, you should. The D-backs, not just the over. I think you should go down when it says to win 90-plus games on FanDuel, and they show you all the teams and all their odds. I think you should put money on the D-backs to win 90-plus games this upcoming season, because they won 89 games last year. They added Corbin Burns this offseason. And the reason they won 89 games last year and missed the postseason is because they had a rotation that was in shambles. Like, think about it like this. They won 89 games, and they had a rotation. When you look at the health, it was obviously terrible because Brandon Pfaadt, 181 innings pitched. We like that. Ryan Nelson, second on the team with 150 innings pitched. He came into the season as the number 6 starter. Slade Ciccone had more innings pitched than Merrill Kelly and Erod. Even Bryce Jarvis, who missed most of the season with injury, had more innings pitched than Erod, which is crazy to think about. Bryce Jarvis had only 14 innings pitched, less than Merrill Kelly, and Jarvis got hurt in July and missed the rest of the season. And so it's like the rotation and the pitching staff fell apart, and they still won 89 games. And yes, it was because they had the best offense in the NL. But guess what? Pretty much they brought that offense back, and whoever they didn't bring back, they replaced them with someone pretty good. And so when I'm looking at the D-backs on FanDuel currently plus 165 to win at least 90 games, I think that's potentially easy money in your pocket. If you're a D-backs fan, go put $100 on that, and you could just double your money, double your revenue straight up. I don't see any world where the D-backs don't make it to the playoffs, because I think for that to happen, essentially the whole team would have to get hurt for the D-backs to miss the playoffs like entirely. Like, I would think it would be insane for the D-backs to miss the playoffs. Right now they're minus 115. So FanDuel does think the D-backs odds are greater. So FanDuel does think the D-backs are favored to get one of those wild card spots at least. That's probably the easiest way to say that. FanDuel thinks the D-backs are making it to the postseason. I believe the D-backs are making it to the postseason. If you believe a team that won 89 games last year and got better and is going to be healthy, why not just bet them to get 90 games this year on FanDuel and put some money in your pocket? That's just my 2 cents on the situation. And that is all for your Mailbag Friday. Please continue to send in your questions every week, as we'll be back on the Locked On Diamondbacks podcast next week. More news, coverage, and insight. And as always, stay safe, stay healthy. Deuces.